I still want to talk about what visioning means, but I want to do that in relationship to this model that I want to present to you that I call the Janus model of transformation of consciousness. I don't know whether you can see clearly enough from there, but there's basically a circle in the middle. You want to think of the flow of time along the bottom. And this is based on the notion of linear time. Now, many philosophers nowadays are telling us, oh, time isn't really linear, and you can be in other states of consciousness when time isn't linear. And that's true, but in this reality, in our ordinary reality, time is experienced in a linear way. One thing happens after another. So there's a circle in the center that I call the present. It's the present world, and I'll come back to that. And then you have the past, is a directional line that comes in like that. And when you're doing healing, and the future goes out that way, when you're doing healing, you're always working with the past. And the kind of therapy I do I call regression therapy. You regress to the past. And that's true even with medical healing. If you have an infection, you want to find out when did you get the infection or the poisoning, when did it start? Or in a wound, how did you get this wound? What happened? What was the impact? Or what was the trauma? What happened initially? So you want to reconnect with an experience and heal that. And I'll say a little bit more about that, how that process works. So healing relates to the past, and we move into the past to heal, and then, but not just to re-experience it, but to integrate it then. The healing, so that's why I have a double thing. You want to, just re-experiencing something from the past isn't enough. It has to be integrated into your present. That's how you know it's healed. And there's a parallel kind of thing that relates us to the future. So I would say, and that's called visioning. We can get visions of the future, and we go into the future to get visions. And visions doesn't mean, vision itself is actually a bad word because, it suggests television or something passive where you just see pictures. A better word actually would be guidance. The vision is always of you doing something. It's instructions for you. What to do in the future. But it is, we call it a vision, And when Martin Luther King said, I have a dream, and then a dream is sometimes used as equivalent to vision. I have a vision of black children and white children being educated together in schools like that. He wasn't talking about a dream he had last night. It wasn't that kind of a dream. See, that was a vision of a future possibility. And that's why I represent the future, see, is one difference between the future, I represent the future as dotted lines, several dotted lines. It's all probabilities. Visioning is not predicting. And see, in psychology, for example, we'll work with this part. They'll never work with this part. Why? Because they think it can't be done. They think, well, the future hasn't happened, you can't predict. Right? But that's not true of ordinary people. It's certainly not true of shamanism, work equally with the past or the future. It's also not true, as I discovered, sort of naively, I suppose, that many other professions, non-psychological, work with the future all the time. For example, in the business world or the organizational world, people are always trying to figure out what the future is, right? And we ourselves do too. So I would say the difference between shamanic divination to the future and ordinary divination to the future, which is called various things like future studies or forecasting or scenarios or many different languages like that maybe you have heard. Projections, people talk about projecting trends, doing computer models. These are strictly mental processes, analytical mental processes, extrapolating from trends and so forth. Whereas in shamanic divination, you go into an alt state, see, sort of beyond the ordinary way of thinking, to bring in possibly non-ordinary perspectives that you wouldn't otherwise get. So there is a sort of a symmetry between the past and the future that way. There's an asymmetry in the sense that the past is what it is and it happened as it happened, although our attitude towards it can be different. The future is probabilistic. We don't actually know which of these possibilities is going to be the one that'll actually then be the one that'll actually happen until it happens. But I've come to think of visioning and remembering, visioning and memory as being the same function looking in different directions. And that's why I call it the Janus model. You know, Janus was a Roman deity that had two faces facing opposite directions like that. And he was the deity of doorways and passageways. And there would be images of him above a doorway and a passageway. And so among the Huichol Indians in Mexico, they also have an image of a double-headed eagle like that. So that's the idea. You can look into the future and the past equally. Once you move into non-ordinary way of thinking or non-ordinary perceptions, which are always accessible to us, and there are ancient practices for doing that.